All right, question and answer. So it can be for either me or for Harriet or for both or whatever you want to do. We won't be able to get to everyone's questions, but you can ask questions as you come by as long as we keep them relatively short. What are you guys interested in knowing? Right here.
What kind of crimes is Varen guilty of?
What kind of crimes is Varen guilty of? Read and find out. The first Rappo. Congratulations. All right, next.
I know you talked a little bit about this. What was the most difficult part of this for you in writing these characters?
What was the most difficult part in continuing the story and writing these characters? Two things were particularly difficult. One was keeping track of everyone. And this is because of the exhaustive nature of Robert Jordan's deep eye for detail. There are over 2,000 characters, I think, or nearly 2,000 characters, named characters in the books. And many of these characters have distinctive voices and distinctive ways of talking, even those who haven't been viewpoint characters. And so it was a challenge. I made good use of the encyclopedia, WOT. Bob Klutz, I don't know if Bob is here, but he's actually a Texan, and it's extremely useful. At one point, this will give you a hint of the sort of level of detail. Robert Jordan's notes are very, very rich and very, very detailed. Harriet has said on several occasions that she believes that there are more words written about the Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan than are contained in the series. And so that would put us at about 4 million words worth of information. At one point, I was trying to keep track of everyone who was with Perrin. And I was building a kind of cheat sheet for myself to remind myself, written in my own hand, of who was there and how they spoke and how they thought and what their allegiances were. And I thought, well, if there's something, I wonder if Robert Jordan did this, if there's something I can work from of his. And so I emailed the assistants, Maria and Alan, to whom the book is dedicated. They are wonderful. And they dove into the files, which they do. Robert Jordan's notes are spread across dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of different files, where he would think up something, write a few paragraphs and ideas, and then name it something, save it, and that some of them are buried in 5 folders deep. He had his own interesting filing system. This is how creative people work. It makes sense to us, but to someone else, it's just enormously complicated. And they dove in and came back to me a few days later and said, hey, we found this. And it was a file called With Perrin. And I thought, oh, great. This is exactly what I wanted. And I clicked on it, and I opened it up, and it was a list of the names of all the Two Rivers folk in Perrin's army who had not yet been mentioned in the books. Okay? So we're talking dozens and dozens of names of people that he might one day use, and so he wrote them all down, and he knew them all. This is the level of detail that Robert Jordan had about the world, and so that was a real challenge. The main thing when I was writing the series that I wanted to do was I wanted to get the character voices right. I knew that I could not imitate Robert Jordan's style. I decided this early on that I would not try to imitate his prose word for word, that if I did so, it would turn into parody, like a stand-up comedian trying to imitate a way a politician speaks. And there would be all the quirks of his language and none of the beauty. Is how it would turn out. So I decided I had to instead adapt my style to the Wheel of Time, and that was a very different thing, at least in my thinking. But I wanted the characters to all feel like themselves. That was the most important thing for me. I felt that if you came to these books, and even if some of the words choices were different, if when you read Rand, Rand felt like Rand, and when you read Perrin, Perrin felt like Perrin, and when you read Egwene, Egwene felt like Egwene, that would overcome everything else. And so the other challenging thing was to get all of the character voices correct, and of them, Avienda and Tuon were particularly challenging, because they're from different cultures that think very differently. Avi was the hardest for me to get right. I actually threw away 2 chapters that I wrote. I tried once, tossed it, tried again, tossed it, and then wrote a third one before it started to work.